explanation. Hopefully that helped. All right, let's move on to the next one, which is sine inverse of x versus sine of x raised to the negative first power. Now, this one's kind of interesting and actually something I haven't really thought about. And I'm just going to kind of roll with my explanation here, and we'll just kind of go through it because I can see where the student gets confused. And when we use inverse notation, this does not represent raising sine of x to the negative first power. But I can see how that's confusing, because when we do sine squared of x, that is to represent sine of x quantity squared. All right. But sine of this does not equal, so when we do sine inverse of x, that does not equal, that does not equal the sine of x raised to the negative first. All right. So this represents our inverse notation. And so therefore we're dealing with the inverse function and of sine of x. So completely different, whereas here represents the reciprocal. And the reciprocal is not always the inverse. So that's where we're going to be dealing with, because this is going to represent as 1 over sine of x, which we learn later is equal to the cosecant of x. Whereas the sine inverse of x is the inverse function, which is not the same as the cosecant of x. So those are not the same. And this is just you really using our notation. I'm not sure as far as what other Oh, yeah. Well, obviously, a lot of times, to avoid this confusion, this is something we use in pre-calculus. I use this notation a lot, but in calculus, we'll use arc sine. And I am assuming that is more commonplace. So therefore, we're not making this confusion, because this is something we use all the time, squared, cubed, but that's not designed for those negative powers, because we do not want sine inverse or sine of -1. We want to use the inverse function, not to represent the reciprocal. So I think that's probably why using arc sine is more of a popular